If you owe the IRS back taxes, you might be wondering, can they really take my car, my paycheck, or what's in my bank account? In this video, I'll go through exactly what the IRS can and cannot legally seize to satisfy tax debt. I'm Brad Paladini. I'm a tax attorney with over a decade of experience helping individuals and businesses fix tax problems so they don't lose their assets. There's one particular asset category that I'll cover at the end that most people seem to think the IRS cannot take, but they actually can. So how do IRS seizures work? The IRS has pretty broad power to seize assets if you owe back taxes. Now, there are a series of notices that the IRS must provide before they can legally take any action. The final notice that you'll receive is the final notice of intent to levy. Now, this is either a LT11, a CP90, or a letter 1058. And with those correspondence, you will have appeal rights to protest the seizure of any assets. There is one exception, and that is for refunds. The IRS could take your IRS or state tax refund prior to issuing that notice in order to satisfy the tax debt. Let's go over some of the most common assets that the IRS will go after. The first is your bank account. Your bank account is fair game. The money that you deposit into that account can be seized by the IRS. There are a few tricky situations that some of our clients have run into in the past. Before I get into that, you have to understand how the IRS actually finds and takes this money. They do it based on your social security number, and they have a database software where they can basically punch in your social security number and find any accounts linked to that social. And this is where the issue lies. It's common for married individuals to share a bank account. And if both of your social security numbers are linked to that account, the IRS could seize the money in that account even if your spouse does not owe the taxes. We've also seen many situations where a parent helped a child open up an account many years ago and never bothered to take their social off of the account. The IRS can seize the money in that account because they believe that it's your money. Now, it is possible to fight this and to try and get the money back, but if you owe back taxes, you should be careful what accounts your social are linked to prevent an inadvertent levy of funds that really don't belong to you. The second most common type of levy is a wage levy or a wage garnishment, where they take a portion of your paycheck. And this can be a really large portion. They basically look at the number of people in your household, the poverty line, and leave you with just that. There's very little left over at the end of the day. The IRS can also seize vehicles. So if you own a vehicle, they could seize that, sell it at auction to satisfy the tax debt. Now, this is less common, although I did have it happen to one client many years ago. Immediately before hiring us, he went out and purchased a $100,000 vehicle for cash, so there was no loan against it. The IRS really did not like that, and so they did end up seizing that vehicle. I can really blame them. That was probably a poor decision by the taxpayer. Something, if he had hired us earlier, we would have told him not to do. The IRS can also seize real estate. They can foreclose on real estate. It's not very common for the IRS to foreclose on your primary residence. So the home that you live in with your family, your spouse, it's very unlikely that the IRS would foreclose on that, although it is legally possible. It's more likely that they would foreclose on a second or third property or a real estate investment property, particularly if there's equity. If there's no equity in the property, it's not really worth the hassle of the IRS foreclosing and selling it if the bank is going to get all the money at the end of the day. But the IRS can, and in some circumstances will, seize your real estate. If you're a business owner, customers are paying you money. The IRS can send a seizure notice to anyone who has paid you money in the past and instruct them not to pay you, the business owner, but to pay the IRS directly. And this is my least favorite type of levy to deal with because it is an absolute disaster for the business. It makes you look really bad to customers. It sucks up all of your cash and it becomes incredibly difficult to continue to operate. But it is something that the IRS can and will do if your business owes back taxes. The IRS can seize other property as well, things like jewelry, maybe a firearms collection. Those again aren't super common. They'd really have to have significant value in order for the IRS to want to pursue them. There is one final category that I wanted to talk about. It's the one category that people don't seem to believe the IRS can take, and they certainly can, and that is retirement accounts. The IRS can take your 401k or IRA or other type of retirement account in order to satisfy the back tax debt. Again, this is not super common, but it does happen with some frequency. If you have a substantial amount in your IRA or 401k and owe the IRS money that you have not been paying, they will seize that 401k account and use it to satisfy the tax debt. So that's something that you should be aware of because it's a common misconception that the IRS can't do that, and they certainly can. We've had many clients over the years that have come to us after the IRS has seized their retirement savings. What are some items that the IRS can't take? Well, there's not a whole lot. So essential personal items, the IRS can't take. So these would be things like modest clothing, household goods, basic furniture like IKEA furniture. You know, if you have furniture that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe the IRS could seize that. But if it's just your everyday furniture, the IRS won't seize that. Tools of the trade is another one. So if you have a business and you have some sort of tool of the trade that's used to generate and earn income, the IRS won't seize that asset. There's certain benefits that the IRS can't take, like unemployment. They can, however, take Social Security. So they can garnish a portion of your Social Security income if you are in fact receiving Social Security. So how do you stop the IRS from seizing your assets? You have to come to some sort of resolution with them. And there are quite a few of different options. You could set up a payment plan where you agree to pay the entire debt over a period of time. If you can't afford that, you could set up a partial pay installment agreement where you pay them a small portion every month that will never fully satisfy the debt, but the IRS is happy to take what they can get. If you're really struggling, you could try get on currently non-collectible status where you're not even required to make any sort of monthly payment, or you could try filing an offer in compromise to settle your tax debt. All of these options come with the benefit that the IRS will not seize your assets so long as you are on that particular type of agreement. The IRS seizes your assets for two reasons. One is to satisfy the tax debt, right? So they are trying to get money to pay down whatever is owed to them. But really, the reason why they seize your assets is to get your attention. By that point in the process, they have sent you a series of letters. You've probably gotten dozens of letters from the IRS warning about this happening, and you've ignored them. By seizing the asset, the IRS hopes to get your attention. And even after the IRS seizes the asset, it is sometimes possible to get it back. So for instance, if the IRS issued a bank levy against your bank account, you have 21 days thereafter to negotiate some sort of arrangement and potentially get all or at least some of that money back. For a wage levy, you could set up an installment agreement and get the wage levy released, or potentially file an offer in compromise, currently non-collectible status, or one of the other options that we discussed. So all hope is not lost if the IRS has already begun seizing your assets. Here are some things that you should not do if you're worried about the IRS seizing your assets. One is signing over the deed of your house to a friend, a family member, a spouse, an uncle, whoever. This can be considered a fraudulent conveyance if they're not paying fair market value for the home and you are simply transferring the deed to avoid the IRS. Don't make a bad situation worse by committing fraud. So to recap, the IRS has very, very broad power to seize your assets. They can take your bank account, your wages, If you're a business owner, they can instruct customers to pay the IRS directly rather than you. And yes, they can even take your retirement account. These things don't happen overnight. There are a series of notices that you will receive prior to this happening. And the most important thing that you can do is take action to resolve the tax debt. Don't ignore the letters. Don't stick them in a filing cabinet. Don't leave them unopened. Take initiative, open the letters, and try to fix your tax problems before things get worse. If you need help with your back taxes, or you're simply worried about the IRS seizing your assets, fill out the contact form below and you can schedule a free discovery call with our firm. If you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos on how to protect your assets from the IRS.